it's time for my first guests of the afternoon and indeed the week. And this week is the National Mental Health Awareness Week. The theme this year for this national campaign is loneliness, which is prominent, not least with the elderly community, but also children, young people and teenagers, which I think actually when not a lot of us think about, not a lot of us when we think about teenagers and young people, we don't think about them being lonely, do we? Well, to tell us more about this, I'm joined by Kelly Munro-Fawcet and Beth Webber. They are both children and young people's community wellbeing workers from Bradford Mind, which is the mental health charity for Bradford. Welcome to the show, both of you.
Oh, thanks for having us. Hi.
Thank you so much for being here.
No problem. Thanks for having us.
And I was going to say this is really nice to have. It's always really nice to have people in the studio because through the pandemic, I've basically just been talking into a sponge in a box by myself for 2 years. And that's really something that we need to talk a little bit about, isn't it? The fact that everyone's sort of been doing this and been more isolated than we ever have.
Yeah, absolutely. I think lockdown hugely impacted on our interpersonal relational experiences. And I think we just became really isolated because we just weren't having that in-person contact that we all need because we're wired for connection. So I think particularly for children and young people to have that removed, to have their interactions with their peers, with other adults in their life just kind of diluted in that way, just has had a huge impact.
Yeah. Do you think, Kelly, that when we're talking about young people and we're talking about young people being isolated and not... when we think about young people and when we think about teenagers, so much of what we learn, how to be human, happens in those years and how we, interact with other people. Do you think there's a generation of young people that have lost out on that?
I think that's a concern, really. I think lots of young people were impacted, sort of 0 to 3 particularly. All those early interactions with playgroups and preschool activities. Children in reception, year 1, hugely impacted, not just in their learning, but also in their social development.
It's quite worrying, isn't it? I'm sure there are parents listening at the moment thinking, oh, well, what can we do? Because you lose those 2 years. And then how do you play catch up?
Yeah, exactly. So I think our service was really kind of set up with that in mind, equipping young people and children to know how to cope, but also kind of connecting with parents and carers to just give them ideas of how they can support young people. And I think the one thing that we just encourage parents and carers to do a lot of is just creating space for young people to talk, creating a safe space to be heard and seen and listened to in a safe, trusted environment is key, because I think with the pandemic that withdrawal from life probably meant withdrawal from conversations about their mental health, about how they were feeling. So making sure that parents and carers have been really intentional about checking in. How are you? What's going on? Creating that space to just be curious with young people about how they're feeling.
Yeah. And I think, have you seen as well in your work, because you're community wellbeing workers, have you seen young people sort of acting out a little bit maybe from not having had that interaction?
I think we have, there's been firstly a huge increase in demand for services like ours, and I'm sure at Leeds in Mind as well, Mind and Leeds. But I think that we've noticed there are lots of young people who don't want to go to school, who have withdrawn and have lacked sort of confidence to get stuck in again. And that's affecting all ages, teenagers and primary school age. So but it's not a fixed point, and we have to recognise that. And it's sort of a learning curve for us all, getting back into our normal activities and our normal routines. And I think young people will be okay. And in a way, there might be some resilience there from having that difficult experience and then moving through that difficult experience. So we have to recognise that as well.
And we have to, I think a lot of the time I think we forget, having been through this and we're still going through it. And I think we forget that first and foremost, but we forget how much young people gave up for us and for our society. They stayed inside during the most fun years of their life, gave up proms, gave up parties, gave up being with their friends to look after us. And I think that's being forgotten a little bit.
Yeah, I think young people really need a space and a chance to just relearn how to be young people again, to find ways of reconnecting with the people that they need to be with, finding ways to do activities that are really life-giving, to make sure that they are just living life in a way that really helps them to thrive. Our service really invests time in encouraging young people to reach out to people, reach out to other organisations, to relearn the things that they're passionate about, the things that they're excited about. And I think as adults in their life, we need to create as many opportunities for that to happen as we possibly can.
Yeah. Kelly, how do we speak to young people about what's going on in the world? Because I think one of the there's the loneliness, which we know exists, but there's also this concern for young people because there's so many big things happening at the moment. And when I say big things, I mean things like climate change, war, the pandemic having happened. How do we talk to young people about these issues and really get a feel for how they're feeling?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and probably one that we're still exploring at Mind. I think it's sort of child-led, I'd say. It'll be led from age, first of all. Generally, younger children don't need to know the ins and outs of what's going on in the world right now. So as much as possible to protect them, really. And sort of to limit that oversharing can really help protect the young person's mental health. I think honesty as well. In other areas, Beth, what are you thinking with like the older ones?
I think curiosity, again, I just love that word, because I think just helping people be curious about how the things that are happening around them are impacting them, how they feel about them, creating space for discussion, you know, asking them, what they think about the things that are going on, and just being very honest and reflective with them, and maybe finding other spaces in which they can do that, particularly in schools, creating opportunities for peer-led, peer support groups where they can come together and just say, what is going on? How do we manage this? How do we stay well in this?
And not underestimating as well that young people are thinking about these things.
Hugely.
Don't you think we spend so much time going, the kids don't care about the economy? They absolutely do, because they're thinking about they're going to be getting jobs in the next few years, and I've heard these conversations happen as well.
And it's that tension, isn't it, between hearing their anxieties about the future and also equipping them to be hopeful for the future. Because young people have got so much to offer. We're just so passionate about encouraging young people to find their voice, and I think that's really important.
Absolutely. Let's talk I wanted to touch on this, ladies, because like I said, you are both children and young people's community wellbeing workers. You work with children, you work with young people. One of the big issues of loneliness for young people is, it can result from bullying. And bullying is something that at some point or another, I imagine most people have been through in their lives, both in person, now on social media. That's a whole other thing that's happening. How are you dealing with this? What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, I think it's a really big aspect of young people's lives. I think we forget that it is effectively an experience of trauma. I think we minimise bullying way too much. But I think just making sure that we are equipping young people to cope. We can't remove them magically from these situations. We don't have a magic wand, but what we do have is a bit of a toolkit to offer them in terms of what do I need to stay well, where can I go to experiencing those positive relational experiences. So we use the 5 ways to wellbeing model a lot, which is around being active, being in nature, connection with other people, learning new things, and caring for self. So that analogy of a toolbox, but also giving them practical tools to be able to manage and know where to go to. I think that asking for help is such a strong message that we really hammer home, because we can't do things on our own.
I think asking for help is a big one. So recently I can think of a few occasions where the young people, particularly teenagers, won't reach out for help because they think it may make it worse. But actually, any trusted adult in their lives, whether it's an organisation like Mind or whether it's a teacher, a friend, somebody who can advocate for that young person, it can make a huge difference. And sometimes, in extreme cases, what people don't realise is that bullying can actually be reported to the police. So it can actually be a police matter. And getting the right level of intervention in can really, really stop that bullying and the schools really do have a responsibility to protect those young people.
Absolutely, yeah, because we know when kids are going through it, they won't come and tell you about it. They're embarrassed that this is happening. So it's really up to all of us as adults to sort of keep an eye on that sort of thing as well. If there are any young people listening, I'm very aware of the fact that it's coming up to 3:00 and there'll be lots of young people leaving school as we are speaking, probably in the back of the parents' cars listening. Maybe some of them are being affected by some of this stuff. Where can they go for help? What should they do if this is them?
Yeah, so I think, again, just that message of finding a trusted adult or friend you can start to talk about some of your experiences with. I think we need spaces where we can talk honestly and openly. The Young Minds website is always somewhere that we signpost. They have fantastic resources on there, places you can go for support, but also experiences from other young people, normalising mental health challenges and recognising that you're not alone, that you're not the only one. It is just really powerful. The Mental Health UK website, that is the kind of behind the Mental Health Awareness Week, they have some fantastic resources on there. And we also signpost young people to an online resource called Kooth. They have online chat function on there to speak with a professional.
How are we spelling that?
KOOTH.
Right.
They have some just brilliant online resources there for young people that are really accessible. Focused for young people, and just another place to go for some support.
Yeah, and I think to parents as well, who might not be aware, the safeguarding Leeds within schools, that's a place to start.
Yeah. I think it's something that I don't think we talk about it enough. I think that if you're from a different generation, you go, well, everyone's bullied, aren't they? Everyone goes through it, and actually, like you said, it can be quite traumatic. So if you are listening, and maybe you are in the back of your mum or dad's car or whoever's car, and you're thinking to yourself, that's me, and I don't really know if I can speak to anyone, I don't know who to go to, like Kelly said, like Beth said, there will be someone in your life who will listen. And you're not alone. You're absolutely not alone. Thank you so much, ladies, for being here this afternoon. Honestly, I wish when I was a kid you two were about. It would have been nice. It'd have been nice. If you are listening, like I said, go and have a look at the Young Minds website. Bradford Mind there, Kelly Munro-Fawcet and Beth Webber, both children and young people's community wellbeing workers from Bradford Mind. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
This afternoon.
Thank you.